Hi, I'm Lynn Wise, and with me today is Lauren Goodrich. Today we're going to be talking about the future of Russia, both economically and politically. Russia's economy has considerably weakened in the past year, and many of the country's biggest companies are struggling to make ends meet. The issue is an important one because Russian President Vladimir Putin has tied his government's legitimacy to the economy, and September parliamentary elections will be here quickly. So, Lauren, Avtovaz, Russia's biggest automaker, has recently said that it would cut jobs and if the Kremlin didn't kind of intervene to stop it. And in 2008 and 2009, the Kremlin did intervene and kind of prop up the company. How likely is that to happen this time?
Well, the government right now is considering how much it's going to be spending for its anti-crisis program. There's a lot of talk, especially within the finance ministry, to actually drain the entire reserve fund, which is around $38 billion currently, and start giving out aid packages. Avtovaz could be one of those companies that would get an aid package. But over the past 2 weeks, they've done a voluntary dismissal, saying we'll give you 5 times your salary if you quit. And so that program has just wrapped up this past week, but it doesn't fix Avtovaz's problem in that car sales are down 34%, and they really need to cut more jobs, or else they need to get an aid package from the government.
And how long would the government be able to sustain that kind of aid, with its economic difficulties as well?
It'd be this year, possibly next year, but that's about it. I mean, there's only $38 billion in the reserve fund and a similar amount in the National Welfare Fund. They do have currency reserves as well, but they would be draining very fast if they kept the aid packages up to what is needed. So because of that, they are allowing a lot of these companies to cut salaries for their employees, such as Avtovaz has cut salaries, Rosneft, Gazprom, Seberbank have all cut salaries in the 5 to 10% range. But that comes with a lot of complications. So yes, you do have a job. Yes, unemployment rate is very low in Russia. However, the poverty rate is now quickly rising because salaries are being cut.
So looking past that year, how does the economy look? Are there signs that it could improve?
We are seeing a general stabilization of the Russian economy. This doesn't mean things are good. It means that the rate at which the economy was in decline is slowing down. And because of that, the World Bank and the Russian government are both revising their forecast on how bad the economy was for this year. It started off to where it was going to be a 2% GDP decline. Now they're down to 1.2% GDP decline. And that could even stabilize further, getting closer to that zero number. Next year, there is possibility that there can be a little bit of growth, but it's going to be nominal. But at least the decline is slowing down.
And what does that mean politically? We talk a lot about how Putin's approval rating is relatively high, even though it's declined in the past year.
Yes, it's gone down about 10%.
Okay.
9 points, some odd percent, in the past, since the beginning of the year, pretty much. So there is signs that the people are getting agitated with Putin's leadership and the economy. However, it is still incredibly high. It is still above that 80% threshold, which is very important to Putin himself. But the problem is, how does that trickle down to the rest of the government? I think that's going to become very evident in going into what you mentioned with the elections. United Russia, which is Putin's party, is looking like it may not even pass the threshold to have a majority in Duma, which would be unheard of for a president that is so popular. But the discontent is starting to be towards the party instead of towards Putin himself right now.
What would that mean in the presidential elections, which are 2018?
Well, these parliamentary elections that are taking place in September are really the litmus test on how are the people relating to the government right now, and how legitimate is Putin as a president at this time. If his party cannot maintain a majority, then that's going to be a real signal to Putin that he may need to start pandering more outside of his core group in order to have the popularity going into a fourth term in 2018. That's a year and a half away. That's coming very quickly, and the economy is not going to be recovered by then. And so there's going to have to be some sort of government intervention with subsidies or with this financial aid package in order to drum up support. There's another way that Putin is maintaining his high popularity, though, which is through nationalism, having the campaign in Ukraine, having the campaign in Syria, and really trying to shift people's attention of look at how powerful we are on the international stage. Let's ignore the economy for right now.
So when we're thinking about the economic turmoil that's kind of going on in Russia, how does that translate into public discontent? I know that sometimes that's hard to gauge.
It's very hard to gauge, especially for a country like Russia. Protests are up about 40% just in the past year, but they're very small, very localized, and very unorganized protests. We're not seeing the mass organization that we saw in 2011 and 2012 that brought hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. We haven't seen that type of organization in preparation for parliamentary elections and in preparation for the economy continuing to stagnate. And if we start seeing actual organization, the Kremlin has a problem then, because it really can't afford to have hundreds of thousands of people on the streets again when it has so many pressures built up on it, even more so than we saw in the 2011-2012 protests.
So we'll keep a close eye on those September elections. Thank you. For more on this and other topics, please visit stratfor.com.